Good morning. கேக்குதா?
Sir, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So you can just add இன்னைக்கு அவங்க ஜான்சன்
Sir,
ஜான்சன் ஜான்சன் ஜேக்கப்னு இருக்கும் பாருங்க. ஜே
Robert sir.
சொல்லுங்க ஜான்சன் மெசேஜ் பண்ணவா இல்லாட்டி ஓகே அப்புறம் ஓகே ஓகே
உங்க வாய்ஸ் எனக்கு ரொம்ப மைல்டா கேக்குது.
அப்படியா வாய்ஸ் கேட்கலையா?
கேக்குது சார்.
ஓகே ஜான்சன்
ஸ்டாஃப் வந்துட்டாங்களா சார்?
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible. Yeah. Yes, yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Am I audible, Johnson?
Yeah, you are quite audible. It's very clear to me.
Thank you. So, a few others.
அதெல்லாம் போதும். அவருக்கு ஆயுதம். Hello, Clive.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Do you need any information?
Johnson sir, good
Yeah,
morning.
good.
Good morning, madam.
Yeah, I think it's fine. We are all, but only the main speaker, he has to be
Okay.
added. I have sent it.
Oh, I'm here. I'm here, Professor Clive.
Oh, yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Saib. Yes,
He's
okay.
there. He's there.
He's there. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good
all.
morning. Good morning, sir.
Dr. Shivashakti can add Salva if you can do that. Samuel sir and Ribu ma'am.
சார் அன்மியூட் பண்ணுங்க. அன்மியூட்.
மேலே எல்லாம் முடிக்கட்டு நீ இப்ப தொடங்கும் மேல எல்லாம் தொடச்சிட்டு கடைசியில இங்க
மேடம் அன்மியூட் பண்ணுங்க.
Robert sir,
சொல்லுங்க
sir சார்மா கால் பண்ணுங்க.
வரலையா? ஓகே I'll check with her. சாமுவேல் சார் ரிபு இருக்கிறாங்களா?
வந்துட்டாங்க சார்.
சாமுவேல் அண்ட் ரிபு.
ரிபு மேடம் இருக்காங்க பாருங்க.
Principal sir, good morning.
Yeah, Samuel sir has come.
Yeah, Samuel sir is there. Okay. Yeah. அவங்க Salva will, I think, anyway, she's trying. So once she comes in, I'll just tell you. No problem.
மேடம் ரிபு மேடம் இருக்காங்க.
மேம்
ரிபு மேடம் இருக்காங்க.
மேடம் சொல்லுங்க.
ரிபு மேடம் இருக்காங்க. ரிபு மேடம்.
ரிபு மேம். Principal sir, good morning. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Principal sir, unmute பண்ணு. Anjani ma'am, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Type, would you like to just check your presentation by screen sharing?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Please. You can.
It says the host has disabled this.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Dr. Shivashakti.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you just
Yes.
our
Sogit
screen
sir,
share?
good morning. Very good morning.
So
Good morning.
This is
Good morning,
Dr.
ma'am.
Shivashakti.
Good morning. 1 minute, sir, please.
Yeah, please.
Good morning to all.
Good morning.
Good morning to all, sir.
Sir, now you are a host, sir.
Shall I try it again?
Yes, sir.
Like Selva has come in.
Yeah. Now, yeah.
It's working?
Yes, it is
Yes,
fine.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, done. Thank you. Can we start, Dr. Shivashakti?
Sir, Dr. Sir.
Can you start? Yeah?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Yes. Right. So good morning. So I just see a lot of you, the participants wishing us good morning. So wish you back good morning. Welcome to the 7th and the last day of the international webinar on Every Child Matters, Reaching the Unreached, Strategies, Challenges, and Success Stories. We, the organizing team, have a great sense of satisfaction of bringing some of the best and the distinguished speakers to share their experiences of reaching the unreached. Today, we have yet another scholar from the University of British Columbia who has a rich research experience as well as the field level experience of working with the less privileged people in the society. We are looking forward to another day of enriching experience through this session. Now I request Professor Johnson Jacob, Associate Professor, Department of English, Crossland College, Brahmawar, Udupi, to introduce the speaker and welcome everyone to this session. I request now Mr. Professor Johnson Jacob to take over, please.
Thank you, Robert Klein. I consider this a great privilege to welcome you all to this final day of our national webinar. We have made an attempt to reach the unreached. We have shared the experiences of all the great speakers. Before I introduce the guest of this morning, Mr. Sahib Tulsi, may I extend a formal welcome to the Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Professor Panjanatham, respected Registrar, Professor V. Balakrishnan, Dean of Faculty, Professor M. Govindan, the Principal of Crossland College, Professor Samuel K. Samuel, and the organizing secretaries, Dr. Shivashakti Rajamal and Dr. Robert Klein. The person who is going to talk to us, interact this morning, is not a very familiar person for most of us. What I have understood about him, Mr. Sahib Tulsi is currently pursuing his doctoral studies in educational studies at the University of British Columbia, Vancouver. For his dissertation, he has worked with the Adivasi youth in central India on theses related to education, curriculum, socialization, identity, and language. He is currently trying to blur the boundaries between research and actors through fieldwork, writing, and storytelling. After completing his MA in economics from Delhi School of Economics, he decided to switch disciplines and studied masters in development studies at the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies, Geneva. He has also volunteered with many organizations and trade unions to understand issues related to the lives of the Adivasis, especially their livelihood. As a part of the Sabbhavana Institute of Public Policy and Politics, he has also facilitated workshops that addresses inequalities from marginalization arising from factors related to gender, caste, sexuality, violation of human rights. Sir, I'm really privileged to welcome you this morning, and I'm sure the session is going to be a very interesting one, as we understand that you are a very deeply researched research scholar. Welcome you, sir, on behalf of the organizing university and the college. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Shagib, now it's your time. You can start your presentation.
Thank you so much. So am I audible?
Yes,
clear?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much to Professor Clive and the organizing committee for having me over, and it's really a sincere pleasure. And most importantly, it's a Sunday morning, but I still see close to 250 participants here. So thank you so much for logging in on the Sunday morning. So thank you so much. And just 3 points before I actually begin my presentation. One, when you're conversing with me in chat or even when you're actually unmuting yourself, I request you please don't use sir. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. So Sahib, you can just use Sahib. So please no sir. Even when you are addressing me in the chat, you have some doubts. So please no sir. I feel really grateful to you for that. And two other things, I would request moderators if I can have their permission as well, because again, I'm a tad uneasy with speaking for a long time. And I think it's very important that we interact as much as we can so that we can have a sort of a two-way dance here. I don't want to indulge in monologue too long. So a couple of requests in that regard are: number one, even when I'm speaking, you can pose your questions in chat, and I will try my best to go through the chat and see if I can address them then and there. That's the first request. And the second request is, in the middle there are 3-4 slides that have some ideas where we can actually reflect on them then and there, without actually waiting till the end of the presentation. So maybe if I can have the permission of moderators, after those 3 or 4 slides, we can probably take a couple of brief questions before I move on to the next part of the presentation. So is that okay, Professor Clive? I hope that's not a problem.
Not at all a problem. It's you can just put the session the way that you like. You're free for the next 1 hour. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, then.
There is a little. Sorry, Shagib. There is a little kind of a disturbance in the voice. You can just probably try to adjust. There's a little of the voice. Yeah.
There's also somebody needs to unmute. Yeah. Is it better now?
Now it's better. Please carry on. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen now. So can you see my screen?
Yeah. We can see you. We can see you and the screen.
Yeah. Okay. So
you can. Done. Yes. Yeah. Clear.
Okay. So my topic is the challenge of understanding our own positionalities and educators. What does there are a lot of heavy words in there. The challenges is a heavy word, understanding is a heavy word, and the heaviest of them all is probably positionalities. But I would just request you to stay with me because it'll take some time to unpack this title. So hopefully, once I'm done with what I have to say, we can come back to what exactly was this title trying to convey. So I will begin. Okay, so this is what is going to be on the discussion table for the next 40-50 minutes. First of all, I'll discuss some of my motivations for choosing this topic, and then you can think. You can think of it as a very. You can think in terms of parts. There are 3 parts to this presentation. In first part, I'll talk about self-awareness. In second part, I'll talk about positionality. And in the third part, I'll talk about something which is quite directly related to the topic of quote unquote reaching the unreached. And I'll use the parts 1 and 2, that is self-awareness and positionality, to just talk about some of the struggles with quote unquote intervention. And then just extend that to talk about some key educational ideas and what intervention mean in the light of those ideas. So yeah, this is why I have this presentation as well, because I think, it's just important to have a little sense of structure so that all the subtexts are also clear as I try to have a coherent narrative throughout. So yeah. Okay. So motivations. So I'll start with my lived experiences. I'll not dwell on it too long, but it's just important to dwell on it for a few seconds because it's quite important to understand where I'm coming from. Ironically, I am talking about positionality, so it's very important. But I'll start with the latest thing, which is in my PhD, I'm actually trying to understand concept of self-narratives, self-identity, and language. So I'll be working with Adivasi students in a city in Chhattisgarh, in an ashram shala, which are residential schools for Adivasi students, and I'll be trying to understand how these students are, how are they telling the stories of their lives to themselves. So how are they thinking about self-identity? What kind of aspirations, desires, and hopes do they have? And this is actually very important to me because it has been an interesting journey for the last 5 or 6 years to understand how I've come to this topic, because as was mentioned in my introduction, I've had some experiences of sporadic field experiences. So till 2013, I was actually doing fieldwork related to somewhat, I would say it was survey oriented fieldwork, and I was trying to understand governance and policy in a much more direct way. And in 2013, I also finished my master's in economics. But it was only after I actually came out of my institutional training that I spent a lot of time in a few districts in UP and in Uttar Pradesh. And that is when I actually, I would say, fell in love with narratives, with the acts of writing, and with the acts of storytelling. And that is why and this happened because I spent a lot of time conversing with children and especially women on various aspects related to education, related to gender, in the villages. And what really fascinated me was not really the surveys I was conducting or the number crunching I was doing. It was more the storytelling aspects. It was more the lived experiences and the shared stories of the people that really moved me and animated me. And that is when I thought that I probably need to study something different, because economics was not sort of into that kind of storytelling at that point in time, probably even today. But anyway, that's a different matter. So that is why I actually switched from economics to development studies. So this is a very important step. So in 2015, I then went for development studies because I was still looking for a subject which can help me sort of dive into those kinds of really lived experiences and details, and I can just sort of dive into the elaborate experiences of people and understand what actually is going on especially in terms of the social experiences of people. But what really happened was in 2015, because that was the first time I went outside of India. I had to study in Geneva in Switzerland. And that was actually also the start of the time that I subconsciously started to think about questions of identity and belongingness and what home means. And these were all personal experiences, because in India, I'd never really thought about my self-identity in that kind of a way. And immediately when I stepped out of the shores of my own country, that is when those narratives sort of came to me. And then I started to ask questions and belongingness and home. And fortunately, I also fell in love with reading fiction at that point in time. So little did I know that was what. That was where the base was sort of coming into place. And after those experiences, after I began to fall in love with stories of aspirations, of relationships, of grief and loss, when I actually went into the field after 2015, I was a very changed person, and what affected me had sincerely changed. So again, I'll cut the story a little short, but that is how I actually reached the topic that I want to study in my PhD, which is understanding self-identity of Adivasi students, because I spent a lot of time with them in 2017 and 18, and I realized that a lot of the struggles that they are going through, again, they're quite different in form and nature from what I had to go through when I went outside of India. But somehow I felt the textures of those struggles were not too dissimilar. So I thought I could actually work hard to understand what they're going through. So that is where these lived experiences actually sort of form the topics of positionality and form the basis of my talk today. And again, fieldwork has played a very important part. So what I have understood is that the more time I have spent learning about the experiential aspects of the conceptual questions and ideas that I have, the clearer I think I have become in understanding what I want to explore with the people I want to work with. So that experiential aspect, actually, that is quite invaluable, to be honest to me. And then coming to the second bullet point, if you just read it along with me. So there were 2 or 3 moments in this presentation which would be quite significant, because one of my fundamental objectives is also to sort of puncture 2 or 3 words in this title, which is reaching the unreached. So I'm still trying to understand what reaching means, and I'm still trying to understand what unreached means, what unreached means. So maybe together we can try and understand and see if there are certain problematic layers even to these words as well, along with intervention, which I'll problematize as well. But so just to conclude this part, after all these lived experiences and reading and trying to write papers on it, what I have realized actually is that before reaching the communities I want to work with, or as it is said, the unreached, I'm beginning to understand that I need to quote unquote reach my own multiple selves. And before that happens, at least I personally can't think of working with other communities. And this is what I'll try to elaborate in the next part as well. And another objective of choosing this kind of a topic which is somewhat inward looking, it is also to problematize the murky territories of what we call the problem solving and finding solutions. So there's this policy level intervention. I mean, this is something I think that we rather as educators sometimes enter too quickly into the territories of problem solving or finding solutions. It's probably because of our, I would say, enthusiasm for engineering, science. But I think that creates some problems because that something vital gets lost in the process. So those kind of murky territories also I'm trying to problematize. Okay, so I'll now move on to the next slide, and then we can probably stop for a couple of minutes after the next slide and see if we can have a little discussion. So anyway, so these were my motivations. Just keep them in mind because all of these are actually, again, tied up closely to each other. And if you keep all of these in mind, you'll understand a lot of the things that are to come. So yeah. So part one is self-awareness. Now, again, self-awareness in itself is quite a broad concept. I will try to narrow it down because I'm concerned with self-awareness for us as educators, for us as researchers, and for us as teachers. So it's a very good concept like positionality, about which I'll talk in the next slide. So just need to keep in mind that this is a very contextual discussion that I'm having because self-awareness, again, it's quite context specific. But what I have in mind, first of all, is the individual skills. Now, what do I mean by individual skills? This is again something that has bothered me a lot because over time, as I have spent time in the field and read up on stuff, some of the most important questions that I've asked myself, especially since I started my PhD, are what kind of listener am I? What kind of an observer am I? How can I give some sort of a commentary on my conversational skills? And then another question is, how would I trace the journey of my own synthetic skills as an educator, as a researcher, as a teacher? How would I trace the journey of my emotional receptivity? And another is, how precise is my own personal imagination? This, I think, are all important sort of entry points into this realm of self-awareness. And these individual skills, I think, have come to mean a lot to me because I can't see myself as becoming even a decent researcher, even a decent teacher, unless I ask myself these questions personally. I don't see myself working in the villages or in an ashram shala, in a school, without having an awareness of how good a listener am I. So and same goes with observational skills and so on. So this is the first aspect of self-awareness, which are the individual skills. And the second is the ways we are affected. This is again quite related to what I was saying in my sort of about my lived experiences, because when I went to the field in 2017-18, the ways I was being affected was totally different to the ways I was being affected prior to, let's say, 2014. So individually, I would like to ask each of you, are you paying attention to the ways you are affected in a classroom, in a meeting, when you are interacting with students in a classroom, outside of classroom? What is animating you? How are you moved by things? And what is it that moves you? That to me, again, is a very important constituent of self-awareness. And for me, it's probably the most vital one, because as I've tried to understand the ways I am being affected by what I'm seeing or what I'm observing, has gone into the kind of research questions that I've eventually come up with. And then all of these couple of aspects of self-awareness then ties into the role of awareness, of writing this awareness into our roles as educators. And this is again something very challenging. And when I say writing, not literal, as in how do you practice this kind of awareness? For me, I'm trying to actually literally see how I can write these awareness into my papers and into my essays. So it is a very challenging part, and I'm struggling a lot. Why? Because the major challenge here is to actually explain to others how I have come to my own understandings. And come what may, these understandings, these interpretations that I'm deriving are going to be influenced by my own personhood. So to understand this, I'll have to converse with my own assumptions, biases, and sort of, for lack of better, the epistemological aspects of my knowledge. And then to write it in a precise and a simple way is somewhat complicated. So that is the question that I want to leave you with as I enter part one, which is the self-awareness. How do you think you can write this awareness into your role as an educator? So maybe now I would like to take a couple of minutes off before I move into the part one. And again, stay with me, because all of this, I'm going to tie it up to sort of make a coherent narrative out of this. So after self-awareness, I'll move to positionality. But yeah, I'll just stop sharing my screen and see if anyone has to share, maybe a couple of individuals have to share anything or any questions they have. So yeah. Yeah, so if any, if Professor Clive or moderators, if you want to unmute anyone, just please feel free. Or any questions?
Yes, it is possible to unmute. If somebody is willing, they can just share in the chat box. It's possible.
Yeah. I'll wait for a minute or so, and then.
Okay.
I see people raising hands. You want to unmute?
Sir, yes, sir, I will add.
Hello,
okay.
Good morning. This is Revati from Bangalore. Sir, I have a query with regard to self-awareness in general.
Revati, I can't hear you.
Sir, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little better. Sahib. No, sir, please. Yeah, Sahib, yeah, please. Go.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sir, I have a query with regard to self-awareness in general.
Yeah.
Like, how can we, promote self-awareness among children, specifically till elementary or primary level?
Okay, so let's just wait for this, because I'll come to this, but I'll just briefly give you the answer. But I'll elaborate on it in the second half. But my simple answer is by practicing self-awareness. I don't think there's any other way. This is not something you can teach others by informing them or instructing them about it. I think it's about practicing self-awareness, and this is what a lot of my presentation is about. And in the next topic, I'll talk why positionality is important. So there I'll dwell on why this is important, and practicing it is the most important thing if you want others also to sort of think about it. So yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Maybe one more, or it's okay?
It's fine. If somebody is unmuting, they can speak.
Okay. But yeah, in any case, you can type in your questions in chat, and when I stop sharing my screen, I'll have a look at chat. And if there are questions to address, I'll come back to the questions. The only thing is, it's not that I don't. I'm happy with the flow, but it's just that I want people also to converse with me and not, have those apprehensions bottled up till the end. So yeah, okay. So I'll begin sharing my screen. Okay, so first we did motivations, then part one was self-awareness, and let me now come to part two, which is positionality. Again, positionality is it's a very deep. It's an ocean, not a deep ocean, but it's an ocean which is always deep. But so again, I would like to narrow down, and what I mean by positionality is again tied to our roles as educators, as teachers. So positionality I see as it's a very delicate marriage between quote unquote I and quote unquote we. So what does that mean? It primarily few words that are closely associated with what positionalities are. I would say are multiple identities, our contexts, our experiences, and here I'm talking at an individual level. All of these things have social aspects as well. But what are our experiences? What are our multiple identities? And as I've written in the second point, what are our positions of privilege, and where do we think we're marginalized? Because all of them are sort of intertwined with each other. So these are sort of things that are related to positionality. So two or three questions that we can begin to ask ourselves, which are questions of positionality, are, for example, how do you think your personal, professional, or intellectual positionalities, and again, when I say positionalities, it can be context, experiences, your identities, your perspectives, how do you think they align with or diverge with your views about teaching, with your views about education in general? And how do you think different legacies in India, for example, the communal legacy, the societal legacy, the national and the global legacy, how do you think all of these influence the social constructedness of different positionalities that you sort of encompass? And another question is also another question is, how are your different positionalities moving over time? Because it's not something that is static. It's not something that is static. It's always moving. So are you trying to understand how those positionalities of yours are sort of moving? Again, just imagine yourself sitting or standing rather in a classroom and trying to talk to students. Have you pondered over these questions of positionality? I mean, these questions, as I have talked to students and I have done some research, they have really sort of slapped me in the face at times. And for me, at a personal level, here I am as an urban, again, these are all heavy categories, but for the sake of simplification, I'm using them. But as an urban middle class Sikh boy who's been brought up in New Delhi and who's training again, as a scholar in a quote unquote Western university, here he is entering a small city in central India, trying to talk to Adivasi students. So there are a lot of problems here. So and I'm still struggling to understand how am I going to address that in my fieldwork, in my writing. So those are the questions of positionality that stare my face right now, and that is where I'm coming from. So it's also about positionality. Is also about understanding how do we nurture our own voices as educators at an individual level. How do we nurture our individualities, and at the same time lay claim to quote unquote knowing something, because we can't sort of be in denial that as teachers, as educators, we are in some sort of an authority as compared to students. So how do we lay claim to knowing something, so that we're sort of challenging that authority as well that we have? And so yeah, so that is why it's very important to think about these multiple identities and our positions of privilege, and also how we are oppressed and how we are marginalized. And now I would like to come to the last sort of bullet point in this slide, which is understanding its significance. And here I'll also address Revti's question in a little more detail, because I think that positionality is very important, because reflexivity is very important, and reflexivity is exactly having that inward gaze on you constantly on the different roles that you are playing, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a researcher, as an educator. That inward gaze needs to be there always, because that parallel narrative of policy, governance, organizational intervention, that will continue to roll on. But this sort of raw material of inner gaze is something I personally have felt that it's sort of missing at times, even in general discussions. We sort of just quickly jump into finding solutions. And that is why that reflexivity is very important. And hence, it is actually about practicing through showing and not telling. So the more you show how you're practicing reflexivity, the more you show that you're struggling with these questions of your own role in all of these things that are happening, I think the more people who are interacting with you will realize that, yeah, there's this something very gray happening here, and probably they'll also be encouraged to then dive deep into those questions of positionality. Because I have had multiple conversations about this with my fellow cohort students in PhD, with my faculty, and all of our experiences are that these are not things that can be easily taught through instruction or through communication. It's just something that people practice and other people see them, and then they begin to get influenced, because that is what happened to me as well. So, and once that sort of mode of inquiry opened into my mind, that is when I really dived deep into the literature and understood what positionality is all about. So that is one point. And the second is, it's again, as I sort of gestured towards it previously, I think it's very important to address the power differentials between students and teachers. So understanding our own positionality in that context is very important. How to actually play that power differential in a constructive way, instead of sort of authorizing that, using that in an authoritative way, and probably using it in a dark way. So that those questions of power, again, we have to struggle with them. And that is why this question of positionality becomes very important. And another reason is also, I think for me, it has helped me to understand the categories that matter to students, what matters to them, what kind of ideas matter to them. Because talking about positionality and actually practicing it has sort of made me vulnerable as well. And I'm very grateful for that, because when I'm vulnerable, and it's sort of, I think it's sort of contagious, the vulnerability thing. And when students see that I'm trying to share intimate aspects of my life and how I'm struggling, and this is not easy for me as well, trying to do my own research or teaching some subjects, then they also begin to open up, and that is how I've begun to understand the categories that matter to these students, these children. So I think it's very important in that regard. And the last point why I think it's very important, positionality, is because personally it has helped me become very clear about my own presence in particular spaces. And space for me is again something important, because these questions were not important to me while I was in India. It was just when I felt like a quote unquote Indian outside of India, that is when again the importance of spaces really dawned on me. So I am now becoming a little more attuned to how I can sort of acknowledge my own presence in particular spaces, wherever they are, whatever kind of spaces. So, and positionality, becoming a little aware about myself has helped me. So this understanding of positionality then leads to the question of how our positionalities might inform our teaching in a classroom. So here again, I think it's very important to address these questions, because it is very important. The question of positionalities in a classroom are, I think, probably the first step towards having relationship of dignity, trust, and care with students. So, but again, I would like to leave this question open, because I think it's very broad, and individually we probably need to struggle with this question. Once we are aware of our positionality and self-awareness, we've dwelled on these questions. How do we think these things inform our teaching in a classroom? And so, yeah, these are two sort of sections, self-awareness and positionality. Again, these are related to each other, but I think self-awareness is probably a little broader than positionality. But I would not like to go into difference or similarities right now, but they are related. And now I would like to tie up these two into talking about something else, which would be the part 3. And but again, positionality is a heavy topic, so maybe we can take a couple of minutes to process it together. And again, if there are any questions, we can address them. I also see people having fun with this slide. Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, so.
Sir, I'm ready again. I'm sorry to interrupt. I have
No,
a question.
please. Yeah, please.
Say if I'm working for an organization as an educator or teacher. Suppose if I'm playing multiple positionalities, like I'm a teacher for my students, I'm an employee for my school or whatever educational institution, and parallelly, if I'm doing any studies, some sort of research work, so I play the role of a researcher as well. So when I'm taking up multiple positionalities, can you suggest something on how we can balance, among these positionalities?
That's a kind of question you will struggle probably till you live, because
Right.
I think the word that you have used is probably the most important word right now in my life, which is striking a balance.
And yes, because this also I have chosen the area specific to professional part alone, because when we take our complete living, it includes social, personal space, everything, right? So we would play multiple positionalities. So there should be a balance. Only then we can work effectively, right?
Exactly. But my point is, before seeking balance, there's a step which comes before, which is understanding how these positionalities play out. Because important thing to understand is that these positionalities are always interacting with each other. Your identity as your gender identity, your caste identity in India, your religious identity, your and then your professional identities, they're all conversing with each other, and it's a constant struggle. They're always in tension with each other. For example, you're sitting in a meeting, you don't know which identity or which aspect of your positionality will be more overwhelming. So so you have to understand how these aspects work for you. And for me, I have just started. I am really scared at times about my research, because I'm scared I'll just sort of, in retrospect, I'll realize how many blunders I made in the field and writing. So, but I think that's a constructive fear. I'm trying to make it into a constructive fear, rather. But yeah, these are sorts of questions you'll have to be continuously asking yourself. How are they playing out in practice? And then get back to your drawing board inside the landscape of your own mind, and then think about ideas related to it, and then get back to it as a category of practice. So it's about thinking of positionality as a category of practice, how it is playing out in your life, and then just coming back to your room and just thinking about it as a category of analysis. And yeah, so those constant conversations are important, and you're never going to strike a balance which will make you fulfilled. That is not going to happen. That's a utopian ideal. But yeah, the mere struggle of it, I think, is something that makes us, I think, the kind of individuals that we want to be in our different identities.
Right. So, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure. Yeah. Okay. So. So I'll just take I'll take a couple of questions. Arijit asks, to what extent a teacher should mix with the student, keeping in mind his professional aspect? Again, let's hold that question, because again, this is a question, Arijit, that is not as inward looking as I want all of us to be right now. Forget about your relationship to the student for the time being. That is the second step we have to climb in the ladder. First, it's about just understanding our own positionalities. And then again, because I've tried to address the questions of power differentials, and it's first, are we even aware of these power differentials? Are we understanding how do they work? Because personally, I had a very, very turbulent time with it. So I am trying to understand that as well. So yeah, maybe we can address that towards the end if you think you don't have a satisfactory answer. But yeah, let's keep that outward-looking questions maybe for the end if that's convenient. Yeah. And again, so Sri Kalaji asked, sir, again, forget sir, does multi-roles, sorry, the question, what was the question? It got lost. Does multi-roles reduce our perfection in doing a task? That this word, I stay away from this word called perfection. It is a very harmful trap that you can sometimes fall into. When I am having inner conversations, I never use that word perfection. It's more about when I am in multiple roles as a researcher, as a teacher, and again, for me, I'm also studying in a university in Canada. So this is the so-called this East-West hierarchy also plays in. And for me, that is a very, very slippery slope, and I struggle a lot. So how do I tackle with it? Again, just trying to be aware and trying to have those constant conversations with myself and then with others about it. So it's about reducing, I would say, the imperfections rather than seeking perfection. Probably that's a better way to put it. It's about being honest to yourself, and by being honest to yourself, being honest to the participants, to the students with whom you're interacting and working. So yeah. Okay. Now I think I'll probably go to the presentation once again. But yeah, just have your questions in chat, and I'll keep coming back. But thank you so much, Shirikala and Rifti. Okay, so again, just to recap, motivations done, self-awareness part 1 done, positionality part 2 done. Now, it's on the basis of, let's say at a theoretical level, we've had our conversations about self-awareness, positionalities. This conversation, again, I am having this conversation with you, but let's say you've had this with your own self or your own multiple selves as well. Now, I would like to tie up all this awareness about self and about positionalities to ask some questions about intervention. Because when I see the public discourses, the national discourses about intervention, it scares me at times because I think there's too much of emphasis on governance, on policies, and I'm not saying that shouldn't be, but I think that it needs to be complemented by other things, and what those other things are is what I would like to talk about here. So first, what does this word intervention mean to you at a subjective level? Personally, what does it mean to you? Because I think all of us at an individual level need to ponder over this word called intervention, subjectively interpret its multiple meanings, and that is when we need to decide the course of our own choices. And I'll just I'll exemplify this by talking about what intervention means to me. So as in my introduction, one line was that he's trying to understand how he can blur the boundaries between research and action through storytelling, through fieldwork, and through writing. After understanding my own self, my own constitution, my own temperament, and for example, my love for solitude, my love for words, my love for reading, I have begun to understand that the policy level interventions right now are not something that I'm going to be too competent at, because I am generally when I think it's at a very small level, it's at a very local level. The larger the scale, the more uncomfortable I become. So I think in very particular terms. So that is why I'm trying to think what moves me. So right now at this moment in my life, I'm thinking of intervention in terms of this amalgamation of writing, storytelling, not just when I say storytelling, it's more in terms of narrative. Even in my writing, in my academic writing, how can I interweave narratives? How can I sort of form a story in there especially through qualitative techniques and qualitative methodologies in the research. So for me, that right now is probably the number one quote unquote intervention that I'm thinking of. And then even quote unquote field. I think field as a site of strategic intervention. It's not something that I'm seeing as a site of data collection or a site where I can go and inform someone. For me, it's a strategic intervention. But again, what that intervention means, that'll only sort of as time unfolds, I'll understand what strategic means, what intervention means. But yeah, that's what I'm telling myself. And and just to have sort of a darker aspect to it, I personally am very skeptical of what the nexus of science, technology, and industry can achieve when it comes to intervention. So I try to stay away from it at a personal level. I understand its advantages, but I harbor a lot of dark thoughts about it. And from my study of history, the more we scale up technology, the more problems arise. And so I personally don't see myself intervening in that space in any way. Once I've understood my own self and my own multiple positionalities. So this is how I'm thinking of the word interventions for myself. This is what the word evokes within me and for me. So yeah, so hence now I hope now you're sort of understanding how this topic came up and why I'm talking about self-awareness and positionality. Because unless you understand what animates you, at least for me personally, I don't think I can motivate myself to do something if I'm not motivated. So I'm not seeing the kind of influence I'm having on people, because that has to be an outcome that really it's not my concern. If it happens, great. As long as I'm not harming anyone, I'm not hurting anyone. But am I sort of doing things in sync with my own temperament, with my own constitution? That is what I'm trying to focus at for the time being. And then I would like to address a general argument, a general idea about our interventions as educators in a classroom. And here I say with all sympathy, and I say as a student who has conversed with a lot of teachers, a lot of professors, I just think that as educators, each and every one of you need to be gentle on your own self. And I say this because sometimes I read stuff, I observe stuff, and it seems to me as if educators are solely responsible for correcting all the historical injustices that have been done in our country, in our society, and all the structural wrongs. It's the educators, it's the teachers that have to sort of take care of it. And there's so much pressure on educators to produce, quote unquote, what we call change. And I really feel pain for educators, for teachers, because I don't think it's only their job. I think we are all sort of collective mediators in a way. And when I say we, I also want to give an example, because I think that in this, again, I use a heavy word, but in this sort of neoliberal world, this with its emphasis on hyper competition and individualism, I think what has happened is that the role of parents and communities has sort of just dwindled away. I don't think that this is a very pleasant process, because as much as educators are important, I mean, the parenting aspect of education is so important, and so are the communities, because that's also where all of us are spending our lives in. I mean, these different aspects. So what I'm broadly also trying to gesture or aspire towards is education as a way of life, because I think there's a lot of problem with picking up this yarn called education and then professionalizing it to this thing called educator. And then it just seems as if the other parts of society, whether it's parents or communities, just seems that they have this feeling that now they can just sort of shed off this responsibility and And to me, that is very, very problematic. I mean, I was talking to my professor the last week, and he said it just seems that parents are just, I mean, they're just busy in their jobs, and they just want to earn money so that even if they want to spend children to school, but that's not really how it works. I mean, parenting is as important as teaching in a classroom. So that is, I'm just saying all this because when you're thinking of your interventions as educators in a classroom, just sort of think about this, because I think one important intervention can be talking to all of these people and letting them know that they are as important agents as you are in this whole process. So talking to community members, provided there are communities, but because unfortunately with more focus on urban life, that aspect is also now really becoming problematic. What is a community? But again, I use it in a very simplistic way. But yeah, talking to members of community and talking to parents and emphasizing their own role, because we are all being educated in some way, and then we are all educators as well, regardless of our professional identities. So that focus, I think, needs to come in conversations as well. That, I think, is one intervention that I would like to suggest on the basis of my observations as a student across various institutions. And so, yeah, and I would also like to talk maybe about different pathways of our engagement. Again, what I'm trying to do is just sort of broaden the spectrum of intervention here. So different pathways of our engagement. This can include producing knowledge, sharing knowledge, and training people on the ground, and then intervention into debates. I think teachers need to intervene in many more debates, and this is what my last slide will also talk about. So yeah, and another important intervening space where I think the scope for us as educators seems to be reducing quite significantly is our intervention through curriculum. I think it's a wonderfully complicated conversation, which is called the curriculum, and it's sort of this ongoing social act which is aspiring towards a shared understanding among different agents, primarily teachers and students, which helps to engage with difference and at the same time protects dissent. And so in a way, curriculum is supremely important to the creation of a community. But I would like to ask each and every one of you, do we right now even have the agency to sort of have a say in how the curriculum shapes up? I mean, again, in a utopian world, I wish educators were given in all sense the freedom to actually come out with the curriculums and try to interact on the basis of that curriculum in a class. But is that happening? Because I think that's an important space in which we can intervene. So yeah. Okay. So I would again like to take some comments and questions now. But yeah, just to sort of recap: motivation, self-awareness, positionality, and then personal conversations with intervention on the basis of what we have learned about ourselves. Again, I mean, this chronology is a bit important just so that you can have a coherence as you're thinking about these things. So yeah, maybe for the next 5 odd minutes, if there are questions or any kind of comments, or even forget about questions, just personal experiences you would like to share on the basis of the kinds of things I've talked about related to intervention, just feel free. Don't hesitate. Yeah. So yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, this is Revati again.
Yes, Revati. Yes, welcome back. Yeah.
Thank you. Sir, you are basically from economics background, right? How do you find the shift from that background into education right now? You would feel some sort of shift, right, in your attitude also. Can you share some experiences of that shifting in the attitude?
Okay, wow. That I can write a book on that, to be honest, because I don't think myself as someone who's trained in economics anymore. I think more of I think of myself as a student of anthropology now. Although I'm in educational studies, but I will be doing ethnographic study and I will be doing participant observation. So the boat for economics has sailed for me totally, and in a way the whole journey that actually underlines what I'm talking about is this journey from economics as a discipline, as the way it is practiced now, and my own temperament, which I realized after 5 years. I know it took me a long time. So after my master's from Delhi school, I realized that this is not something I'm enjoying. As I said, I had a lot of problems in looking out, talking in terms of policy, using numbers to sort of convey just some outlines of stories. So I was not sure if this is something I wanted to do. And the word that came to me was detachment. I felt very detached after a time, not just to the people I was working with in the field in UP, but also to the topics I was working on. I was primarily into development economics and some economics of education, but I just couldn't see my own self. In retrospect, I could say that probably I was trying to make my own voice at that point in time in 2014-15, but I was also trying to find it, but I couldn't find my own voice in what I was doing. There are some criticisms that I have of discipline of economics at a general level, but I don't want to go into that dark spectrum right now, because I might get carried away. But the whole point is that I couldn't see myself there. I wanted something which was a lot more personal, where I could see myself I would say, giving my. Am I audible? I thought there was some problem. Oh, okay, I think I'm audible. I wanted to see my subjectivity play a far more important role than it was doing in economics. And that's where fieldwork also came in, because I was not really enjoying the process of collecting numbers, filling up questionnaires. It was more about listening to the stories of people. So that is why I went to development studies, because I thought that was like a mixed vegetable. I could just sort of taste different subjects and see which one I would like to pursue further, because I was quite sure I wanted to do a PhD. And that is when, again, I can say I was lucky. I fell in love with anthropology, and that is where I saw that there was a lot more scope of conversing with myself, understanding my own competencies, what animates me, and then moving into that intervening space on the basis of what adds beauty to my life, what adds meaning to my life. So yeah, that's where all this came up, and I just did not want myself to be detached from what I was working on and from the people I was working with. And I understood that this is not just related to economics as well. This is also related to me. So, and as I said, a key part was also going outside of India, because I felt I was in many ways an outsider and an immigrant and a South Asian there. And I never thought myself of an Indian, when I was in India. So that's when these questions came in. And then the problems I had with economics and my own personal journey then sort of led to this transformation in me seeking for different avenues where I can express myself. I was looking for modes of self-expression. So that is when I began to think of different pathways to explore my own self, and through exploring my own self, explore other people, and again exploring through exploration of other people, explore my own self once again. So yeah, that's what I was thinking, and I am trying to work on it right now. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So it's 12. Okay, maybe I can just finish up now. There's just a few more ideas that I want to talk about, and then we can have a few more questions. But yeah, thank you so much, Reti, once again. Okay, so now I am coming to last part of my presentation. And here I really want to talk, I want to just go into that space of ideas, and I want to ask each and every one of you if you see these spaces as something that you can intervene in, because I want to now launch into a topic through this question. As I said, there would be some fundamental moments in my presentation where I'm trying to understand what words reach and unreach means. Now, my question is to myself and to each and every one of you. We're talking about reaching the unreached here. So I guess we're talking about the access component of it as well. But my question is, I just want to turn this word access upside down. I want to ask each and every one of you, if you think through your role as teachers, as educators, do you think you are able to reach at the level of ideas, emotions, and values the maximum number of students who are actually present in your classroom? So now it's not a question of geographically or institutionally having access to them. They're right there in your classroom, but are you able to quote unquote reach them at the level of ideas, emotions, and values? This is my starting point into this last slide of mine, in which I'm going to talk about some key ideas. And so the first idea is this idea of reachability. I just again want to problematize this word. Is reachability only in terms of institutional access, in terms of geographical access? Because I don't think that should be the case, honestly, in a better world. It needs to go beyond that, because even the students who are coming to our classrooms and giving us the honor of having them study with us, giving us the privilege of being their teachers, are we reaching them at the level of ideas? So are we reaching those students, or they are also unreached who are in our classrooms? And I would also like to ask you, I mean, is this something we need to ponder over before we talk about we talk about the students whom we are not able to reach through institutional education, or is it something that can wait? So that's another question. And now another idea that I would like to talk about, and I think in the present world, globally, not just in India, these three ideas that I'm going to talk about right now, they are the most important need of the hour interventions at the level of ideas. Each and every one of us needs to understand these ideas and see how we can intervene in the space of ideas and views. The first idea, and they're all to education, of course. The first idea is, I again think because of how the world has shaped up in the last few decades now, it seems that moving up has become moving away. So because of education, if you want to move quote unquote up in your life, you have to move away. Move away from what? Move away from your parents, move away from your land, the place you call home, move away from place, move away from your community. So the paths of education, in a way, they've become the paths that lead us away from education. So then I keep on questioning myself, how is this system, this site of education where so many things are being played out, how is it influencing our aspirations? And what kind of a system have we set up for ourselves? We're moving up in life, whatever that means moving away. And so I think for the sake of some sort of a cultural continuity, and if I may add, for community survival as well, we need to ask ourselves the worth and the purpose and the cost of this education, especially higher education, where I see we have become sort of these consumers of universities and schools, where by the time we are done with it, we are just left with either unemployment or debt, or actually both of them. And then we simply can't afford to go back to our homes because of all this economic baggage that lies on our shoulders. So is there a problem? Do you think this moving away, moving up and moving away, how do you think about this? How can you intervene in this as an educator? Is something I would like to just sort of provoke you to think about this and just throw it into the basket right here. And then the second idea is, it seems as if a lot of the education, if not most, is sort of training us for this thing called job market. And I wouldn't want to sort of talk about any policy right now, but it's for you to sort of see how things are going. It seems as if I mean it's all so vocation based right now. It seems as if we are training for a job market, and I wonder where's the emphasis on values, on aspects of social justice, on critical thinking. I see 3-year-old kids being taught coding, and it scares me. It scares me. I simply don't have words to describe that. So if education just becomes training for the job market, then is that even education? I don't know. I mean, I personally, as a teacher or even as a student, has any one of you have had any session where there's focus on consistent training on any kind of emotional training on understanding our relations with family, with communities, with nature? And I talk in a very practical sense and not in terms of romanticizing anything right now, but that focus on skills, just get yourself, just become skill oriented. And it's just taken a turn for the worse in the pandemic period. But this training for the job market is another intervening space where I think a lot of us need to intervene. Again, how do we intervene? It's up to us. So writing, through debates, through talking with children, talking with communities. But it's just that I think these ideas are so overwhelming right now that we do need to intervene, at least in some way. It's just not a good idea to sit back and let things happen as they're happening. And the last idea is the idea of competitive spirit. And again, this flusters me because it seems to me that more and more the education system in India, and actually even my experience has been that even in countries outside of countries besides India, that the education system just seems to emphasize producing competitive individuals rather than producing more students with social sensibilities. And again, I say this with personal experience because the more I have tried to work on the aspects of mutual cooperation or patience or compassion with my colleagues or with others, with my faculty, the more I have sort of derived meaning and I've derived contentment from my educational outcomes. Again, that's another word that's problematic because there's so much of focus on outcomes, on numbers, that this individualism and this competitive spirit, it really problematizes many things. And as a result, what happens is that I think education system needs to ponder over these values that I'm talking about, the values which are related to social sensibilities. But what generally happens is I don't remember learning much about these things in my school. And when I was thrown into the so-called life outside of educational institution, that's when I had to understand these values and teach them to myself in some way. And I'm just starting. This is a lifelong journey. I mean, I had to re-educate myself in most of these aspects. And the last thing I would like to throw in this context is this: I think that critical thinking without social responsibility is a very, very harmful idea. It's very pernicious in many ways, and you can't just have critical thinking without any focus on social responsibilities. So yeah, these are the 3 ideas, or rather 4 ideas, that I thought I would just put it out there for you to ponder over, because I am personally trying to see how I can intervene in the context of my competencies, in the context of my motivations. But these ideas, I'm sharing them with you at a very general level as well, because I think they're very scary and they're taking the education system in a direction where there's no coming back, and then it's going to be very problematic. So, and that is where I would like to end. And thank you for being such wonderfully patient listeners. So I'll now stop sharing my screen and we can launch into a discussion on the basis of whatever time we have. So yeah, we can have the question and answers now, please. Thank you so much. Anyone wants to start? Yogesh, do you want to unmute yourself, because I think you've been raising your hand for quite a while, Yogesh? Or anyone else, if Yogesh is not here.
Hello, Shivashakti ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I read questions?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, ma'am. So I'm going to read questions for you.
Okay.
The question is from Amsh Mehra. Is there any correlation between cultural dimensions and the teaching and learning process?
Sorry, correlation between cultural what?
Cultural dimensions and the teaching and learning process.
Okay, I will actually need more information on this question, more elaboration. So may I request this person to sort of unmute and elaborate, because these are heavy words. What is the meaning of cultural health? Yeah.
The same person has elaborated the question once again.
Yeah.
What practical ways can instructors cater for cultural appropriation and deal with cultural issues to enhance classroom interaction and bolster learning outcomes?
Okay. So I will answer that question after talking about a couple of other things. But it's because through my presentation, I'm also trying to, especially through my last part of the discussion, I was trying to emphasize this focus on learning outcomes as well. As an educator, how aligned are you with this focus on learning outcomes? I know this is something that is also coming as a pressure on you from the schooling, from the administration side. But I would first of all like to ask you about learning outcomes and provoke you in asking your own self. And when it comes to the notion of culture, again, this is again something which is related to the aspect of local, because in my research, I'm trying to understand, instead of having a lot of my own research methodologies, I'm trying to understand the cultural aspects and the cultural traditions of the community, the Adivasi community that I'm going to work with. I'm trying to understand their traditions, my own data collecting techniques on them. I can sort of use those to interact and communicate with them and make them as much a partner, as much participants of this research as I am. So since you use the word practical, at the level of practice, what I can suggest to you is, what I am trying to do is forget about the scaling aspect of it. Try to think in terms of culture, try to think in terms of local, and the lower you go, I think the better options you'll have. And again, the more you talk about these things with students, and that's I think the best thing that can happen, because they will tell you, this question that you posed to me, it's such a brilliant question, but it has a lot of aspects. And actually, if you ask your students about it, how do you want me to teach? How do you want me to incorporate the cultural aspects of your lives? Before that, have a discussion about those cultural aspects, and then see if and how you can incorporate those cultural aspects into your pedagogies, into your teaching process. Because I sometimes also felt that as educators, we try to solve too many problems on our own. But I think we can simply talk to the students, and we can pose this problem, and we can ask them, how do you think that these aspects of your lives, which I'm not too sure of, or even if I'm sure of, I don't know how to turn them into practice, how do you think we can bring them into the classroom and then sort of try to improve our learning? I'm not saying outcomes right now, it's try to improve our learning. So yeah, that's my 2 cents, sort of reducing the scale of it and thinking more in terms of local, and asking the students about your own struggles so that they can help you out. Because most of the times I think they have the answers, but do we ask them? Are we willing to listen? That for me is the important question. Yeah. So,
thank you.
yeah.
The next question is from Basmati Rao. Sir, current work culture makes it inevitable to carry your work to home. Earning is also a crucial aspect for a working class people. The tension and pressure under such situation is understood by an individual as a result of self-awareness. Whom to approach for guidance to handle this?
Again, this is something that is very specific, and you really have to ask your own self. And I will try to answer it again on the basis of my lived experiences. When I began to struggle with these questions, I had a couple of professors whom I approached. But I'll tell you what helped me the most during that time, and even right now, it's writing, and it's journaling. I used to write in my diary a lot. I still do, and because I think it's a mode of self-expression, of having conversations with your own self, and that really helped me, because that's when I began to understand. Because I think if you want to approach others for discussing these topics, it's very important to understand what you understand about these issues. What are your perspectives? Because even when you're talking to people, you must understand people are coming from their own positionalities and their own subjectivities. So the more focused you are in directing conversations with others, the better people would be able to help you out as well. So for me, I clarified a lot of my questions. I never have had the answers to anything. I still don't, and I don't want to have. I'm happy with just having the right questions right now. So I just try to frame the right questions for my own self through writing and through reading, through these solitary activities. And then I saw some of the people whom I can approach, who may be able to stimulate new ideas, or who may be able to help me show the way to struggle, not find solutions. I'm not seeking solutions, but just guiding me guiding me the ways, in helping me knowing the ways to struggle with these topics, because these problems will always be there. So yeah, I think first it's about asking yourself if you understand these problems your own self, and then seeking out a community. I have a community of 5-6 people, 1 or 2 friends, and mostly members in the faculty whom I approach when I really struggle with things. So it's again this combination of individual and social, and then at least that's how I deal with it. So yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from Dr. Ashok Abhishek. How positionality and personality influence each other?
That's a wonderful question, and again, it's I think again quite fluid, but and the important thing is that they're always in conversation with each other. How you approach your positionalities, I think, is going to be determined by the aspects of your personality. But again, I say all these things with a qualifier that all the time, every moment, your positionalities are changing, and so is your personality. I use the word temperament, I use the word constitution, because that was my personality. I don't work too well in a large group. From there, I sort of derived some conclusions that I need something that is solitary, so that I don't have to work with a very large group. I'm not talking about working with a community for research, that's different. But in terms of, let's say, writing a paper, or let's say implementing some project, that is not something that I'm too comfortable with. So I generally, at this point in time in my life, I don't involve myself in those kinds of projects. And again, I love my solitude. And I simply abhor any kind of violence. And I love reflexivity. I love talking to myself, not all the time, because I get tired of myself as well, many times. But these are all aspects that sort of let me believe that, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm going to be fine. So I have tried to embed these aspects of my personality into different positionalities. So as I told you, as a sick man, as a middle class sick man, brought up in New Delhi, training as a scholar in quote unquote Western universities, the aspect of my personality that I'm trying to bring here is just trying to be as honest as possible, not just with me, but with the participants, and just having those discussions with them about power differentials, because I know that even if the quality of my research in some way it suffers, I will not be very easy if I realize later on that I have been dishonest to them in any way, or in some way I have manipulated them to collect some sort of a data, or I have misinterpreted their stories just so that I can reach some conclusions with which my PhD committee might like. These kinds of things I don't think I will be able to live with. So those kinds of aspects of my personality I'm bringing to these conversations of positionality. But again, these are all things, so you have to constantly be in touch with yourself, because unless those things are possible, you won't really understand how to make this conversation between personality and positionality a harmonious one, because it's constantly happening. A lot of things I have realized in retrospect. I've committed a lot of mistakes in my fieldwork, in my research. So yeah, these aspects I've learned at some cost, but yeah, you just have to sort of have that inward gaze and constantly determine how you want these aspects of your personality to converse with the struggles and tensions that your positionalities will raise for you. So yeah.
Sir, again, Revati here.
Yeah.
You are working with Adivasis, right, for your research works?
Yes.
Can you share on your learnings from them?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I have tried to share, because when I said that, so whatever time I spent with them, because I still have to do my field work, but I have spent a lot of time with them before coming to my research inquiries. But the most important learning I would like to share is that what I also actually talked about before, just ask them. Because I think sometimes I have had a lot of problems in a lot of things, but because I'm not able to communicate to them in about many things because of my positionality, my context, and most importantly, my power, the sort of this power that I seem to have. Because for them, I come from Delhi, and Delhi for them is symbolism of many other things. And my Sikh identity is something that has, I would like to say, benefited me in working with some Adivasi communities, because Sikhs in many areas were large money lenders historically. So at least as an entry point, there's no sort of hostility that I have sort of witnessed or felt. But yeah, it's about talking to them at every stage, even about framing my research questions and research inquiries. I have tried to talk to them, and I will continue to talk to them, because nothing in my proposal is also finalized. I'm trying to make sure that they understand what I am doing. I try to understand what they are trying to communicate to me, and it's about collectively then solving the problems. And this has been my most important learning as an educator, as a researcher in this context, how to practice humility, so that the authority that I have, the powers that I have as a researcher, as a middle class man, how do I sort of not just acknowledge it, but how do I navigate that? It's not as if I can just throw that away. It's something I have, but how do I navigate that? So I'm also, for example, planning to share my draft of dissertation with them before actually publishing it. So, and probably I'll share their feedback in the last chapter of my dissertation. So yeah, this I would say is my probably the most important learning of not trying to answer everything yourself and asking the students yourself. Yeah.
Right. So there is also a big role of positionality, right?
Absolutely. That is why I'm talking about it, because I've also seen people not really acknowledging those aspects of power and not acknowledging those aspects of authority, and then just moving on to collect data and to complete their dissertations. But since I have tried to think about those aspects, and that is why I'm trying to implement them. And again, positionality, again, all these aspects of my identities, whether it's a middle class man or something that bothers most important is I'm being trained in a university which is in sort of the world in the West world. So that positionality is always something that also makes me feel guilty at many levels, because anthropology also has colonial roots. You must understand. So, and there's this exploitative element of how a white man sort of went into the field before independence and collected this data for the colonial government. So those sorts of power relations, I'm always trying to interrogate, and it's a constant battle. And I would say that positionality is probably the most important and the first aspect of trying to understand the nature of this battle before fighting this battle. So yeah.
Thank you.
Ranjini, if there is one more question, you can just take that and.
Yes, sir. The last question from Zakir Hussain. When can I say my positionality is good or as expected?
Never. In my experience, that never happens. And the reason I say this, because I have never felt that it is as I expect it to be. And I'll tell you the reason why, because I don't even know how to form expectations from it, because it is so fluid and it is constantly changing. There are, you must understand that there are aspects of self-awareness and positionality that even I am not aware of. It's when I actually talk to people and then it suddenly hits me, oh my God, I never thought they'll interpret me in this way, or they'll think about something which I never thought of. And that then will show me, it's a mirror to me to think about aspects which I never thought about myself. So I don't even know how to now form expectations about positionality. So for me, it's never a question of trying to become, trying to become content with it or becoming good with it, but it's about constantly asking myself those questions related to positionality. Because again, I also admit that I am very limited in many things, in my interpretations, in my thinking. I have my own biases. So navigating them and then asking myself those questions is something that I constantly try to do. But the only expectation is that I just sort of am very rigorous and consistent with it, so that I don't cause any kind of harm to anyone, either in my research or either in my role as an educator. And yeah, I mean, I judge myself only on the basis of how the people I'm working with judge me as far as positionality is concerned. So I don't think you'll get that utilitarian satisfaction ever, at least in my experience. So, yeah.
Sir, this is Vandana, sir. Actually, I was waiting. And it was indeed a very excellent session. So I'm a teacher. I work in Abu Dhabi. So there were two questions, because I'm handling different sets of students. So I had two questions for you. One is, there are certain students who are very introvert. They don't open out easily. Okay, so what should be my strategies to help them? Number one. Number two is, there are other set of students who are very sensitive. They react. They are very emotional. So every time it is emotional outburst. Okay, so how can they cope up with this materialistic world? Because I don't want them to become somehow become very weak, because you can see nowadays there's no concern for sentiments. So how can they actually equip themselves to be a successful person in this world? So these are the two questions for you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Here, I actually want to problematize the notion of help here, because I think that first of all, as an educator, I have realized that I can't really help a lot of people, to be honest, who are even in my classroom, because that is simply not in my hands, not in my hands. So you talk about a person who is introverted. You talk about a person or a group of students who are emotionally maybe not as expressive or emotionally very sensitive. But see, you can have individual discussions with them. But the way I think about it is that at the end of the day, I think my role as a teacher is to have some self trust in my ability to train myself as much as I can and then do the best job I can in my class. But what is important is that I don't see the failures of my students as my own failure. And this is exactly what I meant when I said that teachers really need to be gentle on themselves as well. Because I really don't think that you can help children become successful in any way. It's about just, I think, forming relationships with them and forming and having those conversations with them, because that's what I said, that you will be spending some very little time with them. Once they're out of school, they'll be with their family, they'll be with their community. So nurturing them in a way is not the job only of an educator. So you can try your best and have conversation with that introverted person, but I would say don't burden yourself of with the word help, or don't burden yourself with this objective in your mind that you're trying to change that, because I think sometimes we can't even change our own selves when the time comes. So having and I say this with all sympathy, because I think having this objective in our heads that we want to change students or we want to help them is, it's such a beautiful objective, but I think it's simply not achievable, and then we as a result sort of then really go down into a dark space. So I would just request you, I mean, to have a lot of self trust in you, because I think that is something that educators must have, and not see failure of your students as your own failure, because that is dependent on many other things. And then also try to see if you can sort of see what how your temperament is, and what sort of creativity you can bring to the classroom, have individual conversations. Something that personally I have done sometimes is, especially with introvert participants, is I do some theater of the oppressed, and there so even quote unquote introvert students have multiple modes of self expression. It's just not is right now captured in the pedagogy that we are doing in the classroom, or you are doing in the classroom. So it's about trying different things, and but despite all these things, just understanding that you may not be able to do much. If you sort of accept that as well, I think it will help you at least sleep peacefully as well. But yeah, I mean, just you can also try a lot of creative techniques, because theater of the oppressed is something that has helped me a lot. And so, yeah.
Thanks
Saib,
a lot.
that has been a very, very, yeah, very big intellectual exercise. We are extremely, really delighted to really listen to you. You said you fell in love with anthropology, you love solitude, and you reflect a lot, and you have conversation with yourself. You're a real good signs of a rising scholar. I'm sure you're going to make a big mark. And Shahid, you very passionately put your ideas to us. And you said, teachers, before you move on to the classrooms, reflect and look into yourselves. And please reach out to children with empathy. And more importantly, what you said, something from personal life, you moved from economics to development studies. You didn't really think numbers make a big difference, but what makes a big difference is your approach to human beings. So I think your experience with Adivasis and other less privileged people in the community has really helped you to form this personality as an educator. I'm sure you have touched the hearts of many teachers who are present here today. So thank you so much for really spending your valuable time and sharing a lot of insights on this theme. Now I request Miss Arsha, a final year student from Crossland College, to propose the formal vote of thanks. Arsha, over to you. Yes,
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is my proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks to everyone who made this session a very productive one. First of all, I express my deep sense of gratitude to Mr. Sahib Tulsi from the University of British Columbia, Canada, for sharing his ideas on the theme The Challenge of Understanding Our Positionalities as Educators. Dear Sir, during the course of your presentation, we could understand your real concern for the less privileged sections of our society. You have provided us with a lot of insights about how educators have to become aware of their positionalities to reach out to the unreached section of children with more empathy and understanding. On behalf of the Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University and Crossland College, I express my sincere thanks for spending your valuable time to share your experience and inspire the teachers to be better educators. Thank you, sir. We are immensely grateful to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, Professor Panchanandam, for his support to have this webinar. We also express our sincere gratitude to the respected Registrar, Professor V. Balakrishnan, Dean of Faculty, Professor M. Govindan, Principal of Crossland College, Professor Samuel K. Samuel, and the Organizing Secretary, Dr. Shivashakti Rajamal, for all their efforts in making this event possible. I sincerely thank every member of this webinar for their support. I appreciate and thank the active participants for your continuous support. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Arsha. That is beautiful. Shaib, thank you so much once again for being available to us. And we'll be moving on to the valedictory, this being the last day. So you can also join us with the valedictory. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure. It's a pleasure, Robert Clark. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well done. Yes, Dr. Shivashakti, we can move on, I think.
Yes,
no?
sir. Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Yes. So it's
Sir,
now
am I audible, sir?
over to yes, very much. So can I request Salva now to take over? Salva, can you just connect?
Yes,
Dear
sir. Am
participants,
I
please
audible?
wait. After 10 minutes, we will post a
Yes.
feedback form. Please wait.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, Silva. Yes, you are
Thank
audible.
you. Yes.
All right. A very good afternoon to all. It's a matter of pride and satisfaction that we could complete a 7-day-long international webinar on Every Child Matters, reaching the unreached in association with the Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai. We are honored because TNTEU gave us an opportunity to host this webinar. We are satisfied because we could get some of the best speakers to share their success stories to hundreds of teachers during the last 7 days. We have come to the last part of the webinar, the Valedictory program. One of the key persons in the organization of this webinar is Dr. Shivashakti Raj Ammal, the organizing secretary and coordinator of the for Capacity Building Programs for School Teachers, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai. She tirelessly worked hard to make this webinar happen. Her enthusiastic spirit throughout the webinar has helped us to gain a lot of knowledge sharing during the last 7 days. I now request Dr. Shivashakti Raj Ammal to welcome everyone to the valedictory program.
Thank you so much, Salva. A very good afternoon to you all. It is a moment of great privilege and honor for me to extend a hearty welcome to all of you today at this memorable event of 7 days international webinar on Every Child Matters, Reaching the Unreached Strategies, Challenges and Success Stories. For valedictory session on behalf of Center for Capacity Building Program for School Teachers, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, and Internal Quality Assessment Cell, Crossland College, Udupi, Karnataka. First, I express my wholehearted and extend my gratitude to our Chief Patron, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor N. Panjanadam Sir, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, for his constant encouragement and kind words to motivate everybody, for his great support to complete the 1-week international webinar successfully. We are all really thankful to you, sir, for your encouragement, support, motivation, guidance for making our programs in a grand success. Thank you, sir. I extend my gratitude to our co-patron, most respected Registrar Professor V. Balakrishnan, sir, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai. Without your guidance and motivation, these programs would not have been possible. And we shall be eternally grateful to you, sir, for your valuable guidance and support. Thank you, sir. I feel very honored and extend my warm welcome to convener and today's chief guest, most respected Professor M. Govindan, Controller of Examination, Dean of Faculty, Head of the Department of Educational Psychology, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, for his valuable support and personal commitment, incredibly generous and helped our team to reach the top and achieve the goal. I welcome you, sir. I express my wholehearted and extend my special welcome, the convener, most respected Professor Samuel K. Samuel, Principal, Grassland College, Brahmavar, Udupi, Karnataka, who has backbone of the event for rendering us with all possible helps and support towards complete this webinar successfully. I heartily welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
I feel very honored and it is glorious moment to extend my warm welcome to Organizing Secretary Dr. Robert Clive, Associate Professor, Department of Social Sciences, Crossland College, Brahmavar, Udupi, Karnataka, who has worked very hard indeed for the last days to make this international webinar a grand success. An event of the dimension can't happen overnight and needs meticulous planning and execution and an eye for detail. It was a perfect mix of topics, teacher and teacher educators. We appreciate your hard work, your efforts and dedication towards this 1 week international webinar. Our biggest applause to you, sir. I welcome you, Dr. Robert Clay, sir. And a hearty welcome to all the resource persons. I would like to thank today's eminent resource person, Mr. Sahib Tulsi, doctoral student, University of British Columbia, Canada. I welcome you, sir. And I would like to thank those all the eminent resource person, Ms. Aarti C. Rajaratnam, Mr. Shashanka Rao, Dr. Padmini Boy, Mrs. Vinita Rachel, Dr. K. Lakshmi Narayana, Mr. K. Krishna Kumar. We warmly welcome all of you who are the most important pillars of the success of this webinar. We welcome you all the eminent resource person on behalf of our organizing team. I heartily welcome Professor Ribu Samvel, Vice Principal, Crossland College, Karnataka. Welcome you, ma'am. My special welcome to Dr. Ranjani Devi, Assistant Professor, NSS Training College. And my hearty welcome to Professor Johnson Jacob, Associate Professor, Department of Language, Crossland College, Karnataka. And my hearty welcome to Salva, outgoing final year student, Crossland College, Brahmavar. And I welcome all the organizing joint secretaries of this international webinar, Dr. B. Subramanian, Assistant Professor, Dr. K. Ratiswari, Assistant Professors, Mr. S. Balamurugan, Assistant Professors, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University. Dr. T. Premalata, Assistant Professor, Bharatiyar University, Dr. S. R.O.K. Elizabeth Josephine, Assistant Professor, Biological Science, Stella Matituna College, Chennai, Mr. S. Rajakumar, Assistant Professor, Dyaraja College, Madurai. And a hearty welcome to all the organizing members of this international webinar, Dr. Joseph Catherine, Principal, SMCE Chennai, Dr. K. Mohan, Deputy Registrar, TNTU, Mr. K. S. Anbu Selvam, CEO, Perungudi, Mr. R. Tirupati, Block Educational Officer, Arimalam, Pudukkottai, Dr. S. Vijayalakshmi, Alumnus, TNTU, Mr. S. R.K. Sami, PhD Research Scholar, TNTU, Mr. J.T. Agustin Javakumar, TNTU, Mrs. Surekha Sethi, Alumni and Director, Student Services, IFIM, Bangalore, Mr. Biju Jacob, IQAC Coordinator, Crossland College, Karnataka, Mr. Girish Rao, Head Department of Commerce, Crossland College, Karnataka, Professor Gurumurthy, K. Department of Social Science, Karnataka, Mrs. Deepa Rao, Department of Management Sciences, Mrs. Sarita, Department of Social Sciences, Mrs. Simita Maibadi, Department of Social Sciences, Crossland College, Wafa, outgoing final year student, Crossland College, Salva, outgoing final year student, Crossland College. Welcome you all. And last but not least, I extend our hearty welcome to wonderful participants who got turned up in such a great numbers from various states across the country. I most welcome all the participants from different parts of our country. Hence, not bad things. They just mean that something else is about to begin. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for that warm welcome. Some people are willing to walk an extra mile to do something different and find happiness in that. Dr. Robert Clive, another organizing secretary of this webinar, is one such person. Sir, I invite you to present a brief report of the last 7 days of this webinar.
Thank you, Salva. Am I audible?
Yes, Dr.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Respected Principal of Crossland College, Professor Samuel K. Samuel, Organizing Secretary of this webinar, Dr. Shivashakti Rajamma, Joint Secretaries, the members of organizing team, esteemed participants, good afternoon to you all. Due to some unavoidable circumstances, the chief guest of today, Professor Govindan, the Dean of Faculty, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, could not join us. He just informed that even on a Sunday, he's busy in the university with some very urgent work. So he excuses himself. So thank you so much that you have given us a lot of support during this last 7 days. I am now honored to present a quick recap of the proceedings of the week-long international webinar on the theme, Every Child Matters, Reaching the Unreached, Strategies, Challenges, and Success Stories. On 5th of October, the webinar took off with a very powerful message from the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Teacher Education University on the theme of the webinar. Everyone was touched by his humility on that day and the great sense of wisdom that he shared with all of us. Sir, at this point of time, we express our deep sense of gratitude to you for giving us an opportunity to be the co-host of this webinar. So thank you so much. The first day of this webinar, the session on 7 emotional hurdles in the classroom by Ms. Arati Rajaratnam, a psychologist and an author, set the tone for the week-long webinar with a lot of examples on the theme. It was a very interactive session and it was appreciated by all. The second day session by the young Shashank Rao was a big hit with the audience with his passionate narration. He shared his experience with the African Leadership Academy and made the presentation very interesting and inspiring. On the third day, Dr. Batmini Pai and Andrea from Australia shared their experiences of taking care of the mental health of the caregivers in the bushfire experience in Australia. They connected very well their experiences with that of the life of our teachers. On the fourth day, Mrs. Vinita from the University of Illinois, Chicago, won the thumbs up from the participants for her humble work with Project Akshara and her own pet project Pencil to help the government school children. It was a much matured presentation from a young scholar. On day 5, Professor Lakshmi Narayana from the University of Hyderabad shared his success story of how he could motivate the university students to get connected to the government school children to make a difference in their lives. On day 6, Mr. Karthik Ramkumar, co-founder and CEO of Avanti Learning Centers, won the hearts of the entire audience with his passionate presentation about his work among the less privileged children. Today, on the last day of the webinar, Mr. Sahib Tulsi from the University of British Columbia made a strong pitch to make the teachers to become aware of their own positionalities before dealing with the students. Each day, we had a combined audience of anything between 500 to 700. In fact, now it is almost about crossing 600 plus on Zoom and YouTube. At this point, I must state that it was the idea by Professor Ribu Samuel, my colleague, to have a webinar with the help of Mrs. Vinita, set the ball rolling. Then came the biggest pillar of support from Dr. Shivashakti Rajamal, a dedicated, very patient, and ambitious organizing secretary. She does everything with a great passion, and whatever time it takes, she doesn't care. No doubt, she's completing her 100th webinar very soon this week. It's not 100th day, 100th webinar, and some of them last for 7 days. Dr. Shivashakti, you have created a very big depository of knowledge on YouTube with your webinars. On behalf of all the participants from different parts of the country, we thank you. I feel that we are fortunate to get some of the best speakers to come on board to share their success stories in this webinar. The young social entrepreneurs really made a big impact in this webinar. The biggest takeaway is that the teaching community is inspired and challenged by these presentations by the speakers. The proof, you ask me, already the views on YouTube of these presentations, which are already available, have crossed 2,000 in just 2 days or 3 days. There is no bigger proof than this for the hit and the success of a presentation. And it's going to be there for a long, long time. We are all grateful to Dr. Shivashakti and Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University for this knowledge depository. I conclude by saying that we have done it as a team. I thank my principal, Professor Samuel K. Samuel, and the entire organizing team for their full support. I have no doubt that this webinar has put the spark, at least in the hearts of a few teachers, to take some baby steps to reach the unreached. I must, at this point of time, thank Dr. Ranjini Devi and also Dr. Premlada for stepping in whenever required. So I just want to thank all of you and wonderful participants for making this webinar a grand success. Thank you so much. We look forward to more such collaborative endeavors. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for giving us the glimpse of the week-long webinar. It is truly gratifying to see the dedicated participants who joined us for this webinar. The participation and encouraging words in the chat box have given us a lot of motivation. I now request Mr. Shaji Devrajan from Little Rock Indian School, one of the participants, to share his experience about the webinar.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Center for Capacity Building Programs for School Teachers conducted by Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and Internal Quality Assurance Cell IQAC of Crossland College, Brahmawar, Udupi, Karnataka, went well on a high note. I was fortunate to listen to eminent and distinguished speakers across the globe during this week-long international webinar. The great work done by youngsters, especially IITians Krishna Ram Kumar through Avanti and Shashank Rao, who is in African leadership, who works with African Leadership Academy, to bring up the children in the backward position aptly reminded me of the theme, every child matters, reaching the unreached. Coincidentally, this theme, every child matters, is the slogan of Little Rock Indian School, where these two speakers studied, Krishna Ramkumar and Shashank. And during the speech, Krishna Ramkumar mentioned about its founder, late Dr. Abraham, C.T. Abraham. And then he said that with his life, he got the spark to work on this social commitment. So there are many people like, for example, Professor Matthew C. Nainan, eminent educationist, who stepped down from a lucrative job to lead Little Rock Indian School and made this school as a reputed one to influence the children. So when we give the spark, This spark will be taken by the students and then they will carry on. So that is what we have understood through these speeches. I would like to mention the first speaker, Mrs. Ardi Rajaratnam, who gave tips of touching the lives of children emotionally, and then all the other speakers who gave some insights. I would like to make a mention of special mention of Dr. Lakshmi Narayana, who is in the Hyderabad Central University, how he could influence that student Rachel, and then made a team to impact the local community at this juncture. So overall, the entire sessions of this week-long webinar was a fruitful one and very informative and insightful. I place on my sincere gratitude to all the organizing leaders, secretaries, principals, and those who are behind the curtain for making this webinar a grand, successful one. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Mr. Shaji. I would also like to request Professor K. Revati, PhD scholar of Bharatiyar University, Coimbatore, one of the participants, to share her experience about the webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. I take this platform firstly to thank both Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University Capacity Building Cell and the IQAC cell of Crossland College for providing such a wonderful learning opportunity on various aspects. Primarily, I was really captivated by the title "Every Child Matters: Reaching the Unreached." I think each word in the title itself is so deep, which makes our learning to be more broader sense. And every day when I go to sleep, I go to sleep with satisfaction of two things after attending this 1 week of webinars. Was that like I've learned something new for today, and it has been very useful concepts which I've learned. And other thing is a satisfaction of having spent 2 to 3 hours of my time today for some useful aspects. And the key takeaways which I'm taking away from this webinar series is that uh, I have developed a sense of accountability for my learning and execution of tasks. And other thing is, I'm able to understand how much responsible I am as a teacher for building the future of the entire country or the entire uh, human beings. Because I think as teachers, we are more responsible for building a better future for every human being, I believe. And last but not the least, I believe learning is never bound by age, time, place, or space. I think this entire webinar series has proved the same thing. And also, it has stimulated my thoughts towards developing compassion for the unreached and underprivileged community as well. Thank you so much for providing such wonderful learning opportunity. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Dr. Robert, sir. Dr. Robert, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, one more participants waiting, sir. Feedback.
Okay. Let him share, please.
Please, Dr. Debu, please introduce yourself. Please.
Thank you, madam. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Vipu GP, Associate Professor in Electronics, Sri Ayyappa College, Chenganur, a government-aided college under the Travancore Devasam Board. Formerly Deputy Director, LBS Center for Science and Technology, Trivandrum, with additional charge of Director, Center for Disability Studies, Government of Kerala, Trivandrum. I have attended all the sessions of the webinar series, Every Child Matters, Reaching for the Unreached, organized by Center for Capacity Building Programs for School Teachers, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, in association with the IQAC of Crossland College, Brahmawar, Udupi District, Karnataka, from October 5th to 11th. I must say that each presentation stood apart and were exemplary, which kept me spellbound. Regarding the webinar, both the selection of topics as well as the presenters from all over the world efficiently managed by the organizing secretaries Dr. T. Shivshakti Rajamal and Dr. Robert Clive needs special mention. I wish all the best for conducting such an excellent program. I must mention the extra pains taken by Shivshakti Madam to stay awake even at 3 a.m. in the mornings to send us the links for the next day and yet appear fresh with a smiling face the very next day, which shows how dedicated she is and her passion to what she's doing. Thank you, madam, for allowing me to attend this program. Looking forward to more of your webinars in future. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Salva, you can go on. Please move on.
Thank you, Deepu sir and Revati ma'am, for sharing your valuable experience. Principal of Crossland College, Professor Samuel Q. Samuel is known for his dynamic leadership. He is always willing to support any program that helps the student and teaching community. He has been a big source of motivation for this webinar to happen. Sir, I request you to make your valedictory remarks.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
done.
Esteemed organizing secretaries of this week-long webinar, Dr. T. Shivashakti Rajamal and Dr. Robert Clive, distinguished teachers who were participants of this program, Ms. Salva, the MC of this program, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of the week-long webinar. I would like to call this as a very meaningful webinar. We had resource persons who made scholarly presentation, but I was more happy about all these presenters because they had a humane approach to their presentation and they could touch all of us through sharing their experiences, their life experiences. And I feel that this particular webinar was not just for an academic enrichment. It made an impact on all of us. And the theme of the webinar, reaching the unreached, it could touch the personal lives of all who participated in this program. So it's not, as I said, going to be just for the academic enrichment. It has posed a question in front of us. The question is going to be, what is going to be our role in reaching the unreached? We also will have to be the catalyst of change. To quote Mahatma Gandhiji, be the change you want to see in the world. And we have listened to some youngsters who could make an impact in the community through their work. People like Krishna Ramkumar, Mrs. Vinida Rachel Verghese, Mr. Shashank, Mr. Sahib, all of them on their own could make a difference in the lives of others. I'm reminded of a small story, a story of a forest fire. See, the story goes on like this. There was a fire in the forest and all the animals joined together in trying to put off the fire. All these animals, they went to the nearby pond and they started bringing water and putting water on this fire. There was a big animal like the elephant which could bring 1 or 2 liters of water and put it on the fire. All the big animals were doing their part and there was a small sparrow. The sparrow was also bringing maybe 1 or 2 milliliters of water and putting it on the fire to put out the fire. So all the big animals were laughing at this small sparrow and asking the sparrow, "What are you doing?" And the small sparrow answered, "I do what I can." I think this is the takeaway from this webinar. Do what we can. Not that we'll have to do very great things, but there are small things that we can do in order to make a difference in the lives of others. So I don't want to take much of your time. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor Panjanadam, who happens to be a very good friend of mine, the organizing secretaries, Dr. Shivashakti and Dr. Robert Klein. Dr. Shivashakti is going to be, I believe, the Sachin Tendulkar of webinars. Sachin Tendulkar kept on, breaking his own records as well as the centuries in cricket was concerned. And I'm sure that Dr. Shivashakti is going to break her own records in organizing the webinars in the days to come. And a word about Dr. Robert Clive. Dr. Robert Clive has been a pillar of strength for me as far as the activities of the college is concerned. He is one who don't mind spending his time for others. And for organizing this webinar also, he has done the same. So I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Robert Clive also for taking all the pains in organizing this wonderful webinar. I thank all the faculty members of the Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University and my colleagues who are all present on different days for carrying out different activities. And it's my responsibility to thank all those 3 participants of this webinar who spoke some good words about this seminar. They realize the difficulty that the organizers will be having or the organizers will face when they organize a program of this sort. So I thank the participants and I thank all the participants, and I end with just a request to you. Take it forward. See, as I told you, this is not just for academic enrichment. This has touched our hearts. And as individuals, we must be ready to do whatever we can to make a difference in the lives of others. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel, sir, for your valuable remarks. We have come to close of the 7 days of international webinar. I request the Vice Principal of Crossland College, Professor Ribu Samuel, to express our gratitude to everyone who helped us to make this webinar a memorable event. Over to you, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Honorable Vice Chancellor of TNTU, Professor Panchanadam, respected Registrar, Professor V. Balakrishnan, Dean of Faculty, Professor M. Govindan, Principal of Crossland College, Professor Samuel K. Samuel, organizing secretaries, joint secretaries, members of the committee, and dear delegates. A very good afternoon to all of you. William Arthur Ward once said, "Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it." I couldn't agree more, especially after all the enriching sessions we have been fortunate enough to attend in the last 1 week. I take it as my responsibility to share this gift of gratitude to all who have made this event a success. Let me jump right in. At the outset, I express a deep sense of appreciation and gratitude to the Honorable Vice Chancellor
of TNTU, Professor Panchanadam, for giving his unconditional support to the organizers to conduct a webinar of this kind. We all witnessed the beauty of his leadership when, during his inaugural speech, he mentioned that all credits of this webinar of this of will go to the organizers, and if any drawbacks, let me shoulder it. Sir, accept my thanks on behalf of the organizers and participants. Let me extend our gratitude to the registrar of TNTU, Professor V. Balakrishnan, and the Dean of Faculty, Professor M. Govindan, for their support. A word of gratitude to the Principal of Crossland College, Professor Samuel K. Samuel, for his support and guidance in collaborating with TNTU for this week-long webinar. Thank you, sir. And now, coming to the dynamic organizing secretaries who have been the backbone of this webinar. For everyone, the valedictory function comes with a sigh of relief. But for Dr. Shivshakti Rajammal, this means taking a deep breath and preparing for the next run. Conducting 100 webinars back to back is no easy feat, but she has proven that it's possible. Dr. Shivshakti ma'am, I feel deeply honored to express gratitude to you on behalf of everyone. Thank you, ma'am. About 2 months ago, I remember having a conversation with Dr. Clive and telling him that Miss Vinita, one of our resource persons, is in India and suggested conducting a webinar with her. Back then, I never thought this is how beautifully that one suggestion would blossom. From collaborations with TNTU to bringing some amazing resource persons on board, Dr. Clive breathed life into the idea of conducting a week-long webinar. Thank you, Dr. Robert Clive, for your untiring efforts and deep passion for knowledge. Let me place on record my gratitude to all the resource persons who have inspired us through their life experiences in reaching the unreached. Thank you all. My sincere thanks to the joint secretaries, members of the organizing committee, and of course, all the participants for their active presence and interactions. Ms. Salva, thank you for holding together this valedictory function beautifully. Once again, thank you one and all.
Thank you, madam. Thank you all for this opportunity. I, Salwa, signing off. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Salva, for the beautiful masters of ceremony. So once again, Dr. Shivashakti, all credit goes to you. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
sir, yes, sir. Thank you, Principal, sir, Professor Samuel, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Dr. Shivashakti, thanks to you. You made it happen.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
continue with the same spirit. You can make wonders.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
yeah.
sir.
Okay, take our Dr. Robert Clive also along with you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
It's
sir.
going to be immense
All
help
credits
for
goes
you.
to Robert, sir, only.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much. Thanks to all the participants. Samuel, sir, thank you so much for giving a wonderful message.
Thank you, sir.
Now.
Thank you, Rebu ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Rebu ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Anjani Devi ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shivshakti. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnson Jacob sir. And thank you, all the Grassland College staff members. Thank you so much on behalf of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University. And thank you, organizing joint secretaries and members of Center for Capacity Building Program for School Teachers. And thank you all the panelists, and thank you all the participants. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you, madam.
Very well done.
I heartily welcome all of you. 100th webinar for Wednesday morning 10:30 a.m. Sir, Principal Sir, I welcome you. Robert Sir, I welcome you. All the panelists, I welcome you. All the participants, I welcome you.
So we stand by you many more centuries. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay.
अच्छे हैं ना, चलो आपको बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। आपने बहुत अच्छा काम किया। इट्स रियली कंस्ट्रक्टिव वर्क व्हिच यू हैव अंडरटेकन एंड इट विल बी बेनिफिशियल टू द एंटायर कम्युनिटी।
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice.
Deepak Sharma ji, please unmute yourself.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
On your video.
Sir, is Shashank Gupta there? Shashank Gupta, has he joined? Tapesh Gupta, sir? Hello? Gupta sir, Tapesh Gupta sir?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Shashank Gupta ने join किया है?
Shri Shakti Madam will be replying, madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shashank Gupta.
Yes, sir. Wait, sir. Wait, sir. Please, sir.
Ma'am, he joins from his wife's ID, I guess.
No, actually, I have some network problem today. I have used my mobile data.
Please, 1 minute. Please, 1 minute, ma'am. I will connect to YouTube link, ma'am. Please, ma'am. 1 minute. I will come. Ma'am, name, ma'am. Kirti, ma'am. Dr. Kirti, ma'am.
Shashank Gupta.
No, actually, he doesn't have any duty today, but I just wanted to inform that I am on my mobile data. So if I get disconnected, please rejoin me if I have to change the mobile, or he may continue if I can't. I have made arrangements.
Shashank sir is not there online.
Shashank name not available, ma'am.
No,
Shalini.
Sushila. Maybe Susila Gupta.
No,
Shalini.
Yes, Shalini.
Yes, Shalini Gupta.
Okay.
He is Shalini Gupta.
He told in the beginning that he joins from wife's ID.
Shalini Gupta name not available. Yes, Shalini only. Yes, Shalini only available, sir.
Doesn't
He has
matter.
not come online yet, ma'am. I have checked in the attendance list.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Not available, ma'am.
Yes, he's not there.
Right.
And Shwati Jawar? Deepak? Shwati?
She is also not there, sir. Let me check.
Actually, she has the responsibility at the end. No? She may join later also.